When my daughter invited me to dinner after a year of silence, my hands started shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. Before I tell you what happened next, please take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Stories like this reach people who need them, and your support truly matters. Now let me tell you how it all began. My name is Claire and I'm 59 years old. I used to believe there was no pain worse than losing a child. I was wrong. The pain of losing a child who is still alive, who walks the same earth, breathes the same air, but chooses to erase you, is something I wouldn't wish on anyone. For 1 full year, my daughter Hannah did not speak to me. No calls, no replies, no holidays, no birthdays, just silence. There was no explosion, no screaming fight I could point to and say, that's when everything broke. It happened quietly, gradually. First, calls went unanswered. Then texts were read but ignored. Then even holidays passed without a word. I replayed every conversation in my head 1,000 times, trying to find my crime. Was it when I questioned some financial decisions she and her husband were making? Was it when I said she looked tired, thinner, not like herself anymore? Or was it simply that I no longer fit into the life she was building? Her husband, Victor, had entered her life like a storm wrapped in charm. Polite, successful, always smiling but never quite warm. I noticed how Hannah changed after she married him, how she stopped visiting alone, how she started letting him answer for her, how her laughter grew quieter. But every time I tried to talk to her, I was told I was overreacting. So eventually I stopped pushing, and then came the message. It arrived on a Thursday night, lighting up my phone like a miracle. "Mom, can we have dinner on Tuesday? I miss you." I stared at those words until my eyes burned. I miss you. 3 simple words that cracked open a year of grief. I cried right there on my couch, clutching my phone like it might disappear if I let go. I didn't ask questions. I didn't hesitate. I replied immediately. Yes, of course, I'd love that. I didn't sleep that night. I spent the days leading up to Tuesday floating somewhere between hope and terror. I tried not to imagine too much, but how could I not? I changed outfits 5 times before leaving. I chose the green dress she once gave me for my birthday, back when she still hugged me without hesitation. I even put on makeup, not for vanity, but to hide the loneliness that had settled into my face over the past year. When I drove to her house, my heart was pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. I arrived early, 15 minutes early. I didn't want to give her any reason to regret inviting me. Her house stood behind tall gates in a quiet neighborhood, a place I once helped her buy when she was still proud to call me her mother. The front yard looked different. The blue flowers we planted together were gone. The place felt colder. I took a deep breath, smoothed my hair, and stepped out of the car. That's when everything changed. As I walked toward the front door, someone came running toward me. It was Rosa, the housekeeper, a woman I'd known for years. But I barely recognized her. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with fear. She glanced back toward the house again and again, like she was terrified of being seen. She stopped in front of me, breathing hard. "Miss Claire," she whispered urgently, grabbing my arm. "Please don't go inside." I froze. "What?" I asked, confused. "Is Hannah okay?" Rosa shook her head violently. "It's not about her," she whispered. "Please trust me. You need to leave now." My heart dropped into my stomach. "What are you talking about?" I asked. "Why?" Her hands were trembling. "I can't explain," she said. "They're watching. Please go. Get in your car and leave." Before I could ask anything else, she looked over my shoulder again, panic flashing across her face. "I have to go," she said. "Please go." And then she turned and rushed back toward the house. I stood there, frozen on the sidewalk. A mother invited to dinner, a housekeeper begging me to leave, a year of silence suddenly ending in fear. I didn't understand what was happening. But every instinct I had, the same instinct that once helped me survive a very bad marriage, was screaming at me, "Get out." I walked back to my car like I was moving through water. I got inside, locked the doors. My hands were shaking so badly I had trouble starting the engine. I should have driven away. But I didn't. Instead, I stayed. I parked across the street, heart racing, and watched my daughter's house from behind the steering wheel. And within minutes, I realized Rosa hadn't just warned me, she had saved me. Because what I was about to witness through those windows would change everything I thought I knew about my daughter and the danger she was living in. And that's when the lights inside the house suddenly turned on. I sat there with the engine running, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to convince myself I was overreacting. Rosa had always been kind, loyal. Maybe she was mistaken. Maybe she was just having a bad day, but the fear in her eyes hadn't looked imaginary. I turned off my headlights and waited. For a long moment, nothing happened. The house looked dark, almost empty, as if no one were home. That alone felt strange. Hannah had invited me to dinner. Why would the lights be off? Then, one by one, the lights inside flickered on. Not the warm, welcoming glow of a family dinner. Bright, harsh, intentional. My heart began to race. From my position across the street, I had a clear view into the dining room. The curtains were open, as if they hadn't expected anyone to be watching. At first, I saw two people I didn't recognize. A man in a dark suit and a woman holding a thick folder stepped into the room. They didn't look like friends, they didn't look like family, they looked official. Moments later, Victor appeared. Even from a distance, I recognized the way he moved, confident, controlled, like everything in that house belonged to him. He was talking on his phone, pacing slowly, gesturing with irritation. Then my daughter walked in. Hannah. She was dressed formally, not like someone preparing for dinner with her mother. Her posture was stiff, her expression serious, empty. I barely recognized her. They all gathered around the dining table. The woman opened the folder and spread papers across the surface. Victor handed something to Hannah. She looked down, and then she signed. My breath caught in my throat. Signed what? This wasn't a dinner. This wasn't reconciliation. This was a meeting. A planned one. I felt cold spread through my chest as I watched Hannah smile, not a warm smile, not the smile she used to give me, but a tight, practiced one that didn't reach her eyes. Victor leaned over her shoulder, pointing at something on the papers. She nodded obediently. That's when I saw Rosa again. She appeared briefly at the edge of the window, carrying something from the kitchen. Our eyes met. She froze. And then, ever so slightly, she shook her head. No, don't come in, don't let them see you. My stomach twisted. What were they doing that I wasn't supposed to witness? I stayed still, barely breathing. The man in the suit collected the signed papers and placed them carefully back into the folder. The woman typed something on a tablet. Victor checked his watch. Then he looked directly toward the window, toward my car. I ducked instinctively, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. When I dared to look again, the curtains were being drawn closed, slowly, deliberately, like a door slamming shut. That was when panic truly set in. I started the car and drove away. I didn't go home. I couldn't. I drove until I found a gas station on the outskirts of the city and parked under a flickering light. My hands were shaking uncontrollably now. What kind of dinner invitation involved lawyers? Why would my daughter need me there if she was already signing documents? And why had Rosa been so afraid? I stared at my phone, rereading Hannah's message. Mom, can we have dinner on Tuesday? I miss you. The words felt different now, calculated, like bait. A chill ran through me as a terrible thought crossed my mind. What if I wasn't invited to reconnect? What if I was invited to sign something too? Something I wouldn't have read carefully. Something slipped across the table between wine glasses and forced smiles, or worse. I went to the restroom, splashed water on my face, and looked at my reflection. I saw a woman who looked older than her years, eyes ringed with exhaustion. Fear etched deep into her expression. Was this what losing my daughter had turned me into? Back in the car, my phone vibrated. An unknown number. I didn't answer. A moment later, a message appeared. Miss Claire, it's Rosa. Please don't go home. We need to talk tomorrow. Noon, bus terminal coffee shop. Don't tell anyone. My breath caught. Rosa was risking everything by contacting me. Whatever was happening wasn't just uncomfortable, it was dangerous. That night I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Hannah signing those papers, Victor watching, Rosa's terrified face. What kind of mother gets invited back into her daughter's life only to realize she might be walking into a trap? By morning, one thing was clear. I couldn't pretend none of this was happening. I needed answers. And tomorrow, at noon, I was going to get them. Even if the truth destroyed what little hope I still had left. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing isn't what you see, it's what you almost walked into without knowing. And Rosa knew something she was desperate to tell me, something that would change everything. The next morning felt unreal, like I was moving through someone else's life. I barely remember getting dressed. I don't remember eating breakfast. I only remember checking my mirrors over and over as I drove, convinced someone might be following me. I arrived at the bus terminal early. Too early. The place was already alive with movement, engines rumbling, people dragging suitcases, announcements echoing overhead. Life going on as if nothing in the world was wrong. I chose a small coffee shop tucked into a corner of the terminal, the kind of place people passed without noticing. Plastic chairs, scratched tables, the smell of burnt coffee. I sat where I could see the entrance. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. At exactly 12:10, Rosa walked in. She didn't look like the woman who used to greet me with a warm smile and a cheerful hello. She wore a dark jacket and a scarf pulled high around her neck, even though it wasn't cold. Her eyes darted around the room, scanning faces, exits, reflections in the windows. When she spotted me, she hesitated, then hurried over and sat down across from me without ordering anything. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. "Rosa," I said, gripping her hands. "You scared me last night. Please tell me what's going on." She swallowed hard. "It's about your daughter," she said quietly, "and her husband." My chest tightened. "I knew something wasn't right," I said. "I saw people there last night, papers." "Signatures?" Rosa nodded slowly. "That was just part of it." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "For months, I've seen things in that house that didn't make sense. Mr. Victor controls everything, who your daughter talks to, where she goes. Even what she eats." I felt sick. "She's so thin," I whispered. "I thought she was just stressed." Rosa's eyes filled with tears. "He tells her she needs to stay perfect, that no one will want her if she lets herself go. If she disagrees, he gets angry, not loud but cold, scary." My heart began to pound. "And the dinner?" I asked. "Why invite me after a year?" Rosa hesitated. "Because they need your signature." The words hit me like a slap. "On what?" "The condo you helped her buy," she said. "And the investments her father left her, you still have control over some of it. Mr. Victor wants everything transferred now." I stared at her. "They could have asked me," I said weakly. Rosa shook her head. "He doesn't want you asking questions." My mouth went dry. "And last night I overheard him talking to a man on the phone," she continued. "He said, after Tuesday everything will be ours. And the old woman won't be a problem anymore." The air left my lungs. "The old woman?" I repeated. Rosa nodded, tears spilling over now. I think he planned something bad, something that would look like an accident." Whine, stares. "No witnesses?" For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The noise of the terminal faded, the people, the announcements. Everything disappeared except the sound of my own heartbeat. "No," I whispered. "My daughter would never, she's not herself anymore," Rosa said gently. "He manipulates her, twists everything, makes her believe everyone is against her except him." I sat back in my chair, dizzy. My daughter, my child. The little girl who used to sleep with her hand wrapped around my finger, planning my death, or at least letting it happen. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Why risk your job, your safety?" Rosa wiped her eyes. "Because I've seen this before," she said. "My sister married a man like him. He isolated her, controlled her, and one day she didn't survive." My throat closed. "I won't let that happen to your daughter," she continued. "And I won't let it happen to you." She reached into her bag and pulled out something small, a recorder. "I recorded some conversations," she whispered. "And I took pictures of documents from his office, forged signatures, plans. Everything." I stared at the device in her hand. "Proof. And what do we do?" I asked, barely recognizing my own voice. Rosa looked at me with terrifying seriousness. "First, you disappear." "What, you can't go home," she said. "They know your routines. If he realizes you didn't come to dinner, he'll get suspicious." My stomach dropped. "And Hannah?" Rosa looked away. "For now, we watch, and we wait, and we protect you." The idea of running, of hiding, felt unreal. I had lived my whole life openly, honestly, but something in Rosa's eyes told me this wasn't fear talking. This was survival. "I know someone," she said. "A place where you can stay, somewhere quiet. Safe." I looked around the busy terminal again, people laughing, arguing, living. None of them knew how close I might have come to dying the night before. "Okay," I said finally, "I'll go." Rosa let out a breath she'd been holding. "But I'm not running forever," I added. "I'm going to save my daughter." She nodded. "That's why I chose you," she said softly. "Because you're stronger than he thinks." As we stood to leave, my phone vibrated, a missed call from Hannah. From Hannah, my heart lurched. I didn't answer. Because deep down, I knew something terrifying. The invitation wasn't meant to reconnect us. It was meant to end me. And if Rosa hadn't stopped me at that door, I wouldn't be here telling this story at all. I left the bus terminal without looking back. Every instinct in my body screamed that if I hesitated, even for a second, I'd make a mistake I couldn't undo. Rosa didn't walk with me. She insisted we leave separately. If he's watching, she whispered before we parted, he'll expect us to act normal. Don't call anyone, don't go home, just drive. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. I got into my car and sat there for a full minute with the engine off, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing anchoring me to reality. Less than 24 hours ago, I was a mother hoping for reconciliation. Now I was a woman running from a man who might want me dead, and from the horrifying possibility that my own daughter was helping him. I drove, not toward my apartment, not toward anything familiar. I drove until the city thinned out and the road narrowed, my phone face down on the passenger seat so I wouldn't see any missed calls. About an hour later, my phone buzzed anyway. A message, unknown number. This is Rosa. I've arranged a place, country road near Santa Fe. Her name is Linda. She knows only that you need time and quiet. Please trust me. Trust. That word had lost its meaning lately, but Rosa had already saved my life once. I replied with one word. Okay. The drive felt endless. Every car behind me made my heart race. Every unfamiliar sound felt like a threat. I kept replaying the image of Hannah signing those papers over and over in my mind. Had she known what she was signing? Had Victor told her lies? Or worse, had she agreed? By the time I reached the small rural town Rosa had described, the sun was already dipping low, painting the sky in soft oranges and purples that felt cruelly peaceful. Linda's house sat at the end of a dirt road, modest and quiet, surrounded by open land and silence. She was older, mid-70s maybe, with silver hair pulled back neatly and eyes that looked like they'd seen more than they let on. "You're Claire," she said simply when I introduced myself. "Yes," she nodded and stepped aside. "Come in, you're safe here." I don't know why those words broke me, but they did. I sat at her kitchen table and cried harder than I had in years. Not loud sobs, just silent tears that wouldn't stop. Linda didn't ask questions. She placed a mug of tea in front of me and waited. That night, sleep didn't come. Every creak of the house made me flinch. Every shadow felt alive. I dreamed of Hannah standing at the top of the stairs, reaching for me while Victor stood behind her, smiling. I woke up shaking. The next morning, I listened to the recordings Rosa had given me, over and over. Victor's voice was calm, calculated, detached, talking about timing, about documents, about how accidents happen all the time. In Hannah's voice, that was the worst part. Flat, distant, repeating phrases that didn't sound like her at all. She's controlling. She doesn't respect us. She needs to let go. It sounded rehearsed, programmed. I pressed my palm against my mouth to stop myself from crying out. My daughter wasn't evil, she was trapped. And I realized something chilling. The silence between us for a year hadn't been her choice, it had been engineered. That afternoon, I used Linda's landline to call Daniel, my lawyer, a man who'd known me since before Hannah was born. When he answered, his voice was tense. "Claire," he said, "where have you been? I've been trying to reach you." "I need you to listen very carefully," I said, "and I need discretion." I told him everything, about the dinner, the documents, the recordings, the threat. There was a long silence on the other end. "This is serious," Daniel finally said. "Criminal serious?" "I know," I replied. "But Rosa warned me Victor has connections. If I go to the police right now, it could disappear." Daniel exhaled slowly. "You're right to be cautious. We need leverage, independent oversight, federal if possible. Can you help me?" I asked. "I already am," he said firmly. "But Claire, you need to stay hidden. If he knows you're alive and not cooperating, he'll escalate." Escalate? That word echoed in my mind long after we hung up. Over the next few days, I lived like a ghost. No phone, no routines, no patterns. Rosa sent short updates from a prepaid phone. "He's nervous. He's asking about you." Hannah looks confused, withdrawn. Then one message changed everything. I heard him say Plan B. He mentioned taking her away. My hands went cold. Taking her away, out of the city, out of the country, out of my reach forever. That was the moment fear turned into resolve. I wasn't just hiding to stay alive anymore. I was preparing to fight. Because if Victor disappeared with my daughter, I might never see her again, and I refused to let that happen, even if it meant stepping back into danger, even if it meant facing the truth Hannah might not yet be ready to accept. Because sometimes being a mother doesn't mean waiting, it means acting even when you're terrified. And as I sat at that quiet kitchen table, staring at the recorder in my hands, one thought became painfully clear. Victor thought he had already won, but he had underestimated one thing: a mother who finally understands what's at stake will never stay silent again. I didn't sleep that night, not after Rose's message. He mentioned taking her away. Those words echoed in my head like a ticking clock, because I knew what that meant. Victor wasn't just planning to move Hannah, he was planning to erase her from me. From anyone who might question him, from the life she had before he rewrote her reality. By morning, fear had hardened into something else. Resolve. I sat at Linda's kitchen table as the sun rose, my hands wrapped around a mug of coffee that had gone cold. The recorder lay beside it, small and harmless looking, yet powerful enough to destroy a carefully constructed lie. For the first time since this nightmare began, I allowed myself to say the truth out loud. My daughter is being abused. The words felt heavy but also clarifying. This wasn't a family disagreement. This wasn't distance or misunderstanding. This was control. This was coercion. This was danger. And hiding wasn't going to save Hannah. I called Daniel again as soon as it was reasonable. This has escalated, I said the moment he answered. He's talking about taking her away. Daniel didn't hesitate. Then we move now? What does move mean? I asked. It means we stop playing defense, he replied. It means we expose him carefully, strategically, and with witnesses who can't be silenced. By noon, Daniel had looped in two people I never expected to need in my life. Miles, a former law enforcement officer turned private investigator, quiet, methodical, and unsettlingly calm. And Dr. Lauren, a psychologist specializing in coercive control and emotional abuse. When I explained everything to them, the isolation, the recordings, the forged documents, Hannah's year of silence, Dr. Lauren didn't look surprised. She's not choosing him over you, she said gently. She's surviving him. That sentence broke something open inside me. All this time, I whispered, I thought she hated me. She was taught to, Dr. Lauren replied. That's how control works. You isolate the victim from anyone who might challenge your authority. Miles leaned forward. The question is, he said, how much time do we have? Rosa answered that for us later that afternoon. He booked a flight, she texted. Not sure where, he's acting calm, too calm. Victor's calm terrified me more than his anger ever could, because calm meant preparation. Miles didn't sugarcoat it. If he gets her out of state, or worse, out of the country, your leverage drops dramatically. I swallowed hard. Then we don't let him? The plan that followed felt unreal, like something from a movie I never wanted to be in. Rosa would watch for an opening, a window where Victor left Hannah alone, even briefly. Dr. Lauren would come with us not as an authority figure but as a stabilizing presence. Miles would handle logistics. And me, I would do the hardest thing I'd done in my entire life. I would face my daughter knowing she might reject me because there was a possibility I couldn't ignore. What if Hannah didn't believe me? What if she chose Victor anyway? Dr. Lauren was honest with me. That happens, she said softly. Victims often defend their abusers, especially when the abuse isn't visible. Then why try? I asked, my voice shaking. Because sometimes, she replied, one interruption is all it takes to crack the spell. That night, Rosa's message came at 9:04 p.m. He's leaving tomorrow morning, business trip. She'll be alone for several hours. My heart slammed against my ribs. Tomorrow, there would be no second chance. I barely slept. At dawn, we met at a gas station 10 minutes from Hannah's house. Miles checked the area methodically. Dr. Lauren reviewed notes. Daniel stayed on standby, ready to act if things went wrong, and I sat in the passenger seat staring at my hands. What if she won't see me? I whispered. Dr. Lauren looked at me steadily. She will, she said, even if she doesn't realize it yet. When Rosa sent the final message, he's gone, everything moved fast. We entered through the back exactly as Rosa instructed. The house was quiet, too quiet, and then I saw her. Hannah sat on the couch wrapped in a blanket despite the warm air, staring blankly at the television. She looked so small, so thin, so unlike the daughter I remembered. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. This was the girl who used to dance in the kitchen, who laughed too loud, who hugged me without hesitation. Now she flinched at the sound of footsteps. When she saw me, her eyes widened in shock. "Mom," she whispered, "what are you doing here?" Her voice wasn't angry, it was afraid. That nearly destroyed me, but I remembered Dr. Lauren's words. "Stay calm, be safe, be steady." "We need to talk," I said softly. And as Hannah backed away, panic flickering across her face, I knew something with absolute certainty. Whatever happened next, there was no going back. Because the moment I walked into that house, I stopped hiding. And Victor's control over my daughter had just been challenged for the first time. What happened in the next few minutes would decide everything. The moment Hannah saw me standing there, I knew this wouldn't be easy. Her first instinct wasn't relief, it wasn't joy, it was fear. "Mom," she whispered again, backing away slightly. "You can't be here, Victor will be back soon." That single sentence told me everything. Not "why are you here?" Not "how did you get in?" but "he'll be back," as if his presence was the law of gravity. I took a slow step forward, keeping my hands visible, my voice calm, the way Dr. Lauren had coached me. "Hannah," I said gently. "Victor is out of town, you're safe right now." Her eyes flicked nervously toward the windows, then back to me. "You don't know that," she said quickly. "He always knows. He always checks." Dr. Lauren stepped forward then, her voice warm, grounded. "Hannah, my name is Dr. Lauren. I'm here because people who care about you are worried. We're not here to hurt you." Hannah's jaw tightened. "I don't need help," she said automatically. "I'm fine. My mother is the one who's always interfering." The words hurt, but they didn't surprise me. They sounded practiced, rehearsed, Victor's voice wearing my daughter's mouth. "Honey," I said softly, "do you remember inviting me to dinner last Tuesday?" She frowned. "Yes, I think so." I pulled out my phone and showed her the message. She stared at it for a long moment, confusion flickering across her face. "That's my number," she murmured, "but I don't remember writing this." I let the silence do the work. Finally, she whispered, "Victor borrowed my phone that day." Dr. Lauren nodded gently. "That happens more often than people realize." Hannah shook her head, overwhelmed. "You're twisting things," she said weakly. "He just wants to protect us." "Protect you from what?" Dr. Lauren asked. Hannah opened her mouth, then stopped. She didn't answer, because somewhere deep inside she knew the answer didn't make sense. I took a breath. "Hannah, I didn't come here to accuse you," I said. "I came because I was warned that you're in danger, and so was I." Her eyes snapped to mine. "What do you mean?" I nodded toward Dr. Lauren, who gently handed Hannah the recorder. "Press play," I said quietly. "When you're ready." Her fingers trembled as she did. Victor's voice filled the room, calm, cold, calculating. Talking about documents, about control, about accidents. I watched my daughter's face as realization crept in, disbelief giving way to horror. That can't be," she whispered. "He wouldn't say that." But the voice continued. Unmistakable, then another clip played, Victor speaking about me, about how I was in the way. Hannah's breathing became shallow. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I swear I didn't know." I believed her. "Honey," I said, stepping closer now, "I don't think you planned anything. I think you were being used." She collapsed onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. "He said you were trying to control me," she sobbed. "That you were jealous, that you wanted me to fail so I'd come crawling back." Tears streamed down my face. "I only wanted you safe," I whispered. Dr. Lauren knelt in front of her. "Hannah," she said calmly, "has Victor ever made you feel afraid of disagreeing with him?" Hannah hesitated, then nodded. "Does he monitor where you go?" "Yes." "Control what you eat?" "Yes." "Tell you who you can talk to?" "Yes." Each answer came easier than the last. The spell was cracking, then the phone rang. Hannah jumped violently. "It's him," she whispered. The screen lit up with Victor's name. Dr. Lauren met her gaze. "You don't have to answer." Hannah stared at the phone, then slowly did something I never thought I'd see. She pressed decline. The silence that followed felt monumental. For the first time, Victor wasn't being obeyed. Her phone rang again, and again. She turned it off with shaking hands. "I'm scared," she admitted quietly. I wrapped my arms around her then, finally, and she didn't pull away. "I know," I said, "but you're not alone anymore." That was when Miles appeared at the doorway, his face serious. "We need to leave," he said. Victor changed his flight. My heart dropped. "How soon?" I asked. "Hours, maybe less." Hannah looked at me, terror in her eyes. He'll be furious. Yes, I said firmly, and that's why we're going now. She stood slowly, looking around the house like it was a cage she was finally seeing clearly. I don't want to come back, she whispered. You won't, I promised. As we moved quickly toward the exit, I felt something shift. Victor's power wasn't gone yet, but it was weakening. And my daughter, my brave, broken, beautiful daughter, had just taken her first step out of the dark. What came next would be dangerous. But we were finally moving toward the light. The farmhouse went silent after the police cars disappeared down the dirt road. No one spoke. The only sound was Hannah's uneven breathing as she sat curled on the couch, knees pulled to her chest, staring at the door Victor had been dragged through minutes earlier. For the first time in a year, he wasn't on the other side of it. And that realization hadn't fully reached her yet. Dr. Lauren knelt in front of Hannah, keeping her voice calm and steady. You're safe right now. Your body just doesn't know it yet. Hannah nodded faintly, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking. I thought he was going to kill you, she whispered to me. When he started yelling, I thought he'd hurt you just to punish me. I swallowed hard. I know. Miles checked the locks again, even though Victor was long gone. Trauma didn't respond to logic. Neither did fear. Daniel returned from a call, his face serious. That wasn't the end of it, he said quietly. Victor's already hired a lawyer. He's claiming emotional instability, says Hannah was coerced. Hannah flinched like she'd been struck. See, she whispered. I told you he always does this. He makes me sound crazy. Dr. Lauren turned to her, firm but gentle. This time there's evidence, and there are witnesses. His pattern is documented. But what if it's not enough? Hannah asked, tears welling. What if they make me go back? The room tensed. No one is making you go anywhere, I said more sharply than I meant to. Not ever again. Miles nodded. There's a restraining order already being drafted. Emergency level? Daniel added, and federal charges don't disappear because someone smiles in court. Still, fear lingered in the air like smoke. That night was worse than the chaos before it. Because once the adrenaline faded, the memories rushed in. Hannah woke screaming just after midnight. I found her sitting upright in bed, eyes wide, gasping for breath. He was standing over me, she sobbed. I couldn't move. He kept saying, you belong to me. I sat beside her and held her until her breathing slowed. He can't touch you anymore, I whispered. Not here, not ever. She shook her head weakly. It doesn't feel real, I understood. Because freedom doesn't feel like relief at first. It feels like standing on shaking ground, waiting for the cage door to slam shut again. Morning came slowly. Gray light crept through the farmhouse windows, revealing the exhaustion on every face. Daniel spread papers across the kitchen table, timelines, call logs, transcripts. He didn't just plan to take assets, he said. He planned to erase you, legally, socially, emotionally. Hannah stared at the documents with hollow eyes. I signed things, she whispered. I didn't even know what they were. He said I was helping us. Dr. Lauren placed a hand over hers. That doesn't make you complicit. It makes you a victim. But I believed him, Hannah said, shame creeping into her voice. I defended him. I pushed people away. I felt that familiar ache, the grief of losing my daughter while she was still alive. You were surviving, I said softly. That's not the same thing. Later that afternoon, Hannah finally asked the question I'd been dreading. Mom, why didn't you force your way back into my life? The words cut deep. I wanted to, I admitted. Every day, but he built walls so carefully, and I was afraid pushing harder would make him hurt you more. She nodded slowly. He told me you abandoned me, she said. Said you chose your own life over mine. Tears filled my eyes. I never stopped loving you, I said. Not for a single day. She broke then, cried the way she had as a child, loudly, openly, without restraint. And for the first time in a year, she cried in my arms. By evening, the calls started. Victor's lawyer, then another, then a message from someone pretending to be concerned. Daniel shut it down fast. No contact, he said firmly. Everything goes through legal channels now. But Victor wasn't done. Just before sunset, Miles came in from outside, jaw tight. He posted, he said, online, a statement. Hannah froze. What kind of statement? Miles handed her the phone. Victor's words stared back at us in neat, polished lines. My wife has been taken advantage of during a fragile mental health episode. I am heartbroken. I ask for privacy as we work to bring her home safely. Hannah dropped the phone. He's turning it around, she whispered. He's making himself the victim. Dr. Lauren nodded grimly. That's what abusers do when they lose control. They rewrite the story, and people will believe him, Hannah said. They always do. I lifted her chin gently. Not everyone, I said, and not this time, because something had changed. She had spoken. She had left. And she wasn't alone anymore. That night, Hannah stood on the farmhouse porch, staring out at the open fields. I don't know who I am without him, she admitted quietly. He was my whole world. I stood beside her. He made himself your world, I said. That doesn't mean he was, she exhaled slowly. I want my life back, she said, even if I don't know what that looks like yet. I smiled through tears. That's okay, I said. We'll figure it out together. Inside, Daniel closed his laptop. The court date is set, he said, and Victor's past is unraveling faster than he thinks. Miles added, he's not as untouchable as he pretended to be. Hannah looked back at the house, at all of us, and nodded. For the first time, there was something new in her eyes, not fear, not confusion, but resolve. Victor had controlled her body, her choices, her voice, but he had lost the one thing he could never take back, her truth. The courtroom was colder than I expected, not physically, but emotionally. Hannah sat beside me, her hands folded in her lap, shoulders tense but steady. She wore a simple navy dress, nothing dramatic, nothing that could be twisted into a performance. Dr. Lauren sat just behind us. Miles and Daniel were a few rows back, and across the aisle sat Victor. He looked nothing like the man who had once terrified us. His suit was expensive but ill-fitting, his posture stiff, his confidence cracked around the edges. When his eyes met Hannah's, she didn't flinch. That alone told me everything had changed. The judge entered. The room rose. Silence settled like a held breath. Victor's attorney spoke first, smooth, rehearsed, polished. He painted Victor as a devoted husband, a man struggling to support a fragile wife, a victim of exaggeration and manipulation. I watched Hannah carefully, her jaw tightened but she stayed silent. Then Daniel stood and the story shifted. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't dramatize, he laid out facts, recorded conversations, forged documents. Medical records, witness testimony, patterns, not one incident but a system. When the recordings played, Victor's voice filled the room, cold, calculating, detached, talking about accidents, about ownership, about how no one will question it once she's gone. The color drained from Victor's face. The judge leaned forward, and then Hannah was called to testify. She stood slowly. For a moment I saw fear flicker across her face. Then she spoke. She didn't shout, she didn't cry. She told the truth about the isolation, the control, the starvation disguised as health, the lies repeated until they felt real, the fear of disobedience. And then she said something that made the entire courtroom still. I didn't leave because I stopped loving him, Hannah said. I left because I remembered how to love myself. Victor laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. That's not love, he snapped. That's brainwashing. The judge struck the gavel, and that was the moment Victor lost. Because abusers cannot stand when control slips, and he revealed himself. The ruling came swiftly. A permanent restraining order, full investigation upheld. Charges moved forward. Victor was let out in cuffs. He didn't look at Hannah. He didn't need to, she had already walked away. The months that followed were not easy. Healing never is. There were nights Hannah woke shaking, days when guilt resurfaced. Moments when she questioned herself, but she went to therapy. She rebuilt routines. She reconnected with friends she thought she'd lost forever. And slowly, piece by piece, she came back, not to who she used to be, but to someone stronger. One afternoon, months later, we sat on a park bench watching children play. I used to think love meant sacrifice, Hannah said quietly. Now I know love doesn't ask you to disappear. I smiled. That realization saved you? She nodded. And Rosa saved you? Rosa had testified too. She now works with a local advocacy group helping other women recognize warning signs early. Victor was sentenced the following year. Fraud, forgery, abuse, 15 years, no early parole. When the news broke, Hannah didn't celebrate. She exhaled. That was all, because closure isn't joy, it's peace. Today, Hannah lives on her own. She laughs more, eats freely, speaks without fear. Sometimes she still reaches for her phone instinctively, then stops and smiles. Freedom takes time to feel normal, and I learned something too, that silence doesn't always mean distance. That control often hides behind charm. And that sometimes the bravest thing a mother can do is wait, and then act without hesitation when the moment comes. If Rosa hadn't whispered at that door, if I hadn't listened, this story would have ended very differently. So if you're watching this and something feels wrong in your gut, listen to it. If someone is isolating you, controlling you, shrinking your world, that is not love. And if you're a parent watching a child drift away under someone else's influence, don't give up. Sometimes the door opens when you least expect it. And when it does, be ready. If this story stayed with you, please like and subscribe for more real-life stories like this. And tell me in the comments, what moment changed everything for you? Because sharing our stories might be the warning that saves someone else.